Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Today, we're talking about the aims and results of policies, domestic economic policies. So let's break this down as a reminder. Aims is the overall goal of a policy. What did you want to achieve? And results is the outcome, the consequence, or the effect. We're not just looking at whether it worked or not. We're looking at why it didn't work, what was wrong, so on and so forth. Now, domestic. When we're talking about anything that is domestic, we are referring to it existing or occurring inside a particular country, Nazi Germany in this case, not foreign or international. All of this is taking place at home. And economic, as you've heard multiple times now, this refers to trade, production, and anything that has to do with essentially currency or money in the country. And as you're going to safely assume, a lot of what Hitler's economic policies are going to be based off of is this right here. It's war technology and war spending. So let's dive right in. Now, Hitler was not a very economically savvy man. He kind of had a loose understanding of economics. He much like all of us, we have some basis of an understanding. So Hitler was very much dedicated to putting specific people in power. The first person he puts in is Hjalmar Schacht, and he is in power from 1934 to 1937, which is a year after Hitler comes into power. So this guy is immediately put into place, essentially. And when he is put into place, his sole focus, his sole goal is to enact what he calls the new plan, his new plan. So the example for this is Schacht's new plan, or Hjalmar Schacht's new plan. His new plan essentially focuses on these two components. He wanted to create schemes or jobs or programs for creating employment through public work projects such as road repairs, forest cleaning, planting, and the building of new hospitals and schools. Now, this should sound familiar. This first bullet point should really stand out to you, because this is the exact same thing that FDR did during the New Deal. He created programs specifically dedicated to employ people to pave roads, build bridges, go out and interview former slaves to get their stories. All of this is a tried and true copy. An interesting subpoint here, there are a couple people who debate whether FDR got this idea from the Nazi government here with Hjalmar, or if he got it from his own idea and Hitler stole it from them, or Hjalmar stole it from them. The second component of his new plan was young men between the ages of 18 and 25 were required to join the National Labor Service for 6 months. During this time, they would be trained in basic skills and directed to work where it was most needed. Now, what this is referring to as basic skills, it's learning German, it's being literate, it's learning how to read, it's learning how to do manual labor with hammers, drills, how to operate a saw, how to weld, how to do whatever we want to put you in. But if you also notice, a lot of these basic skills is also cooking, is also budgeting, is learning how to do finances. Because look at this age group. This age group is also perfect for the military. So Schacht's new plan was not only, let's get all these kids, let's get all these young adults, let's put them into the environment, let's put them into the workforce, train them and teach them how to become civilians, because from there, we can then build them up into soldiers. They need to know basic skills, and then they can focus onto that. This is a picture of Hjalmar with Hitler. He has a very this expression, this scrutable expression he has, is pretty common in every picture you find of him. Now, how do we know that this policy was not only specifically targeted for the economy, but also targeted for future soldiers? Well, because the third part of the new plan, the secret part of the new plan, was rearmament. What he wanted to do was, we not only get all these guys to start doing public works. We then start creating factories and jobs so that we can rebuild our military. Now, this had to be secret. This had to be subtle because it violated the Treaty of Versailles. It went against and broke international law for them to do this. But they did it anyways. And specifically, what Hjalmar wanted to do was get all these men ready to go to start clearing forests, start building schools, hospitals, and building up military supplies, because this area right here, the Rhineland, was taken from Germany and was demilitarized by France. So this new plan was focused to extend control of Germany through the Rhineland and to get it back through military force. Now this was the aim. This is the aim of what Hjalmar wanted. What was the result? Well, the result of his new plan was a glowing success. He was able to immediately put a lot of people in employment. The economy started really bouncing back really quickly. And with the overlaying of military armament with these men, these young men, being primed to be built up onto better soldiers, it really helped motivate and cause the Nazi Party to be very well received. People who, after 2 years, 3 years, have been under the control of the Nazi Party, start to see like, oh wow, no, these guys do follow through. They do say what they're going to say. And unfortunately, Hjalmar was, despite these being successful, was not able to fully meet what Hitler wanted. So Hitler said, hey, thank you for your service. You did the best you could. But I'm going to replace you. And I'm going to replace you with our next example. Goering's 4-year plan. So Hermann Goering steps in 1936 and stays there till 1939. Which is it's a key year here. Because if you remember, the Second World War starts in 1939. And that's what makes Goering's 4-year plan, our next economic example, an interesting one. So what he wanted to do was these 3 core things. He wanted the bringing of the German labor force under stricter control so that it could be directed into vital areas for armed production. So everything that Hjalmar built on, Goering says, great, this is awesome, but instead of clearing a forest, let's put them in a factory to build bombs. Oh, instead of paving that road, let's put them into building tanks. Instead of doing that, let's put them into this. And the sole goal of him relocating these young men is to increase the use of import controls to protect Germany. The more he can fill workers into the factories, the more they could produce, which means the less they need to import. And the final point was the production of synthetic substitutes for rubber and oil in order to avoid these from having to be imported. Remember, there are 4 things you need to win a war. You need rubber, you need oil, you need soldiers, and you need food. You got those 4 things, you're going to win your war. So all of this is all focused towards war. And there's a reason for that. Because the reason why Goering calls it the 4-year plan and implements it in 1936 is because the overall goal of his 4-year plan was so that in 4 years, Germany can fight a global war and win. So in Goering's mind, by 1940, right, 4 years, from 6 plus 4 is 40. In 4 years, Germany can fight in like a World War I type of scenario, but win rather than lose this time. And Hitler loved this idea. Hitler thought this was like one of the best ideas in the world. And the people of Germany were loving it. They were like, yes, let's get us ready to go. Let's get us rearing. Let's get us going. The people who didn't like this were minority groups, right? The Jews, the Romani, the Black Germans, and the religious minorities. the Presbyterians, the Catholics, the Pentecostals, they were all resistant because they don't want to go to war. They specifically do not want to go to a war. Yet Goering, which you could see right here in this picture with Hitler, is solely focused on meeting Hitler's goal of world domination, meeting Hitler's goal of meeting war. So that's the aim. What's the result? Well, it was a very effective plan. It just had one big glaring issue. And the issue with that is that Goering was planning in 1940 to have this plan come to fruition before a war started. But Hitler couldn't wait. So in September 1939, World War II begins. So although Goring's 4-year plan was specifically designed to motivate Hitler's forces, it was effective, but it did not ever finish its completion. Did not ever come to a standing of what it needed. Instead, Hermann Goering was replaced by Albert Speer. If you'd like to read into him, he's very interesting things that he does during the war. But the overall result was a larger, stronger army that was ready to fight a war, but not necessarily ready to win a war. And that's where we get some interesting details, as we will see in the complete and next unit of the Second World War.